Resolution 2023.38, encouraging the celebration of the month of June as LGBTQ Pride Month.
Whereas, Milpitas Unified School District supports the rights, freedoms, and equality of those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And whereas, those who took a stand for human rights and dignity at the Stonewall Inn in New York City on June 28, 1969, were pioneers of the LGBTQ movement, including two transgender women of color, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, were brave visible leaders in the uprising at Stonewall Inn. And whereas, in December of 1973, the board of the American Psychiatric Association voted to remove homosexuality from its list of mental illnesses.
Whereas, in 1975, the Civil Service Commission eliminated the ban on the employment of homosexuals in most federal jobs. Whereas, on January 8, 1978, Harvey Milk made national news when he was sworn in as an openly gay member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Whereas, in the LGBTQ community has many historical figures that climbed to the top of their respective fields, such as WNBA stars Cheryl Swoopers and Sue Bird, Olympic figure skaters Brian Boitano and Johnny Weir, tennis stars Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova, Olympic gold medalist diver Greg Louganis, U.S. women's soccer star Megan Rapinoe, actors Ellen DeGeneres, Jodie Foster, and Neil Patrick Harris, and musicians Elton John, Ricky Martin, Freddie Mercury, and Sam Smith.
Whereas in October of 1979, 75,000 people participated in the National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights to demand equal civil rights, and whereas on October 5, 2004, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals determined in Smith v. City of Salem that transgender employees are protected from workplace discrimination under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Whereas on October 28, 2009, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Obama, and the bill expanded existing federal hate crime laws to include crimes motivated by a victim's actual or perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability.
Whereas on June 26, 2013, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in United States v. Windsor that Section 3 of the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, was unconstitutional, and that the federal government cannot discriminate against married lesbian and gay couples for the purposes of determining federal rights, benefits, and obligations. Whereas, on June 26, 2015, the Supreme Court of the United States in Obergefell v. Hodges decided by a vote of 5-4 that the 14th Amendment requires all states to license marriages between same-sex couples and to recognize all marriages that were lawfully performed out of state. Whereas, on May 13, 2016, the Department of Justice and Education released joint guidance to help provide educators the information they need to ensure that transgender students attend school in an environment free from discrimination based on sex. Whereas, in June of 2020, the Supreme Court of the United States decided by a vote of 6-3 that one cannot be fired simply for their sexual orientation or gender identity under the Civil Rights Law of 1964.
Now therefore, be it resolved that the Milpitas Unified School District Board of Education recognizes that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ rights are human rights and are protected by the Constitution, that all Americans should be treated fairly and equally regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. The struggle of protesters and countless other LGBTQ people for equality, and encourages the celebration of LGBTQ Pride Month to provide a continuing opportunity to learn the discrimination and inequality that has faced and continues to face the LGBTQ community. Passed and adopted by the Milpitas Unified School District Board of Education at a meeting held on June 13, 2023 by the following vote.